Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. No, I did not forget about Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Just doing them on their own separate video. Definitely deserved it. Definitely warranted. Just did a whole breakdown of the whole other 12 fights that are happening before this. But again, this has to be a separate video. Islam Makhachev, 23 wins, 1 loss. Minus 380 favorite. Gonna be the bigger guy. Gonna be the stronger guy, you would think. More powerful, better submissions. 31 years old, 5'10", with a 70.5-inch reach. He's fighting Alexander Volkanovski, who's 25-1. Plus 300 underdog from Australia. 34 years old, 5'6", way shorter, 4 inches shorter. And he has a 71.5-inch reach. So he has an inch in reach, 1 inch reach advantage. But Islam Makhachev, man, his one loss, we all know, Adrian Martinez, whatever it's called, whatever his last name is. I think it's Martinez. Let me see. Martins. Yeah. Adriano Martins. Lost that one. Did move his head. Got caught with a big left hook. And he won the fight. You know, and then he comes back and fights Chris Wade, who we know, we've seen Chris Wade in PFL and stuff. Not really a big finisher. I think he's finished 2 guys now, Kyle Bochniak and some Russian guy. Finished them. Then fought Nick Lentz, beat him up for 3 rounds. Fights Gleison Tibau and finishes Gleison Tibau. Gleison Tibau coming back from a PED suspension. I think he'd been off for a year, 2 years. Then fights Kajan Johnson, who hasn't fought in a long time, which is surprising. But either way, yeah, beats him in an armbar, 4 minutes and 43 seconds in the first round. Then fights Arman Sayukin and beats him with a 3-round decision. You know, Arman had some good moments. He did some good things. Like he did some, he got a couple takedowns on him. He looked good. The issue is that Sayukin's gas tank stuff could not keep up with Islam Makhachev. Then he goes in and he fights David, which now we know that the Arman Sayukin victory that Islam has is going to look good. Arman's a monster. Then he comes back and he fights David Ramos, and then at this point, David Ramos had never been taken down. He hadn't had any things like that. And what happens? He goes in there and he does exactly that. Takes him down, does whatever he wants, really, gets a decision, win. Then he comes back and fights Drew Dober after a long time off, to be honest. Long time off. Fights Drew Dober and just smushes Drew Dober. Granted, Drew Dober's best part about him is he's not the fighter part about him or whatever. His skill sets are not on the ground. They are on the feet. They are in brawls. They are in technical, stand-up affairs. It's not a ground game. So this is a perfect fight for Makhachev to show how good he is. And if he didn't get a finish, it'd be credit to Drew Dober for surviving, but he still lost. That type of thing. Thiago Moises is one of the bigger victories he does have because of what he was able to do to Moises. He made Moises look like he was an amateur. He made him look so bad. Then he comes back and fights Dan Hooker. Very short notice fight for Dan Hooker. Even if he had a full training camp, that probably happens 10 out of 10 times. Kimura in the first round. Then he comes back and he fights Bobby Green in ground and pound. I think Bobby Green only had a couple days notice for that. But it would be very interesting to see what Bobby Green was able to do on a more of a training camp. Honestly, because Bobby Green does have some pretty good takedown defense. And he's crafty. And he creates really good scrambles. Not saying that changes, but I don't think it ends in the first round like it did do. Then he comes back and he fights Charles Oliveira for the title almost 8 months later. Fights Charles Oliveira, runs right at Charles, hurts Charles multiple times, goes to his guard, beats him up from there, and gets an arm triangle choke. Almost instantly a tap from Oliveira. Then they set up this fight with Alexander Volkanovski. And let's check out Alexander Volkanovski. Let's look at him. 22 wins in a row. He was 3-1, 3-0 when he lost his first fight. His last fight was July 2nd. Again, he's 34 years old. What a whole lot of things. 12-0 in the UFC, 4-1 in the RFC. in 3 years, 3-0 in whatever that is. Doesn't really say, but biggest thing is he's beaten Max Holloway 3 times. I mean, that's the biggest thing on this list. That's the biggest name he has on here, unless he goes out there and somehow beats Islam Makhachev. But beats Max Holloway by decision, and it was a dominating. It wasn't close. Split him open late, second or third round of the fight. Dominates Chen Sung-jung, destroys Chen Sung-jung, then fights Brian Ortega. This is the fight that people are talking about with Islam Makhachev and and Volkanovski, the Brian Ortega fight. Where Brian Ortega is so good is the guillotines. Where Brian Ortega, that's his move. So for him to slip into it and Volkanovski not tap and survive, and not only not tap, but get out of it, get into a triangle where T-City is Triangle City for Brian Ortega. And what happens? He gets out of it again. Gets out of it again and beats the holy hell out of Ortega. Oh, you probably could have stopped that fight in that I think the end of the third round or end of the fourth round. Then again, before that, he fights Max Holloway. Beats him by split decision. I personally thought Holloway won that second fight, but it was close. Then he beat Max Holloway for the first time by decision, beat Jose, beat Chad Mendes. And this is another one where Chad Mendes, I remember watching this fight live, the John Jones Gustafsson 2 card. But I remember Darren Elkins putting up a good fight against Volkanovski. It was honestly, once again, another thing where Chad Mendes' cardio failed him again. Because if that cardio would have been in place and where it needed to be, this fight probably changes. I mean, it really does. You know, Chad Mendes not only dropped Volkanovski, not only took him down a couple times, but he was having some really, really good some success. Seriously. Darren Elkins dominated Darren Elkins. Beat up Jeremy Kennedy. Finished him in the second round, almost the third round. Got a decision over Shane Young, who at the time was 11-3. He is now, 13-6? So 2-3 in his last 5. Brutal. And then before that, he beat Masuto Hiroto. Jesus. And then beat Hasuko Kaseya by ground and pound. And then whatever. The one loss is against Corey Nelson, head kick and punches, early round 3. He's 12-4 at the time. What is he now? 20 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. He doesn't say his anything. Oh, his last fight was in 19. Okay. So, he doesn't fight anymore. Okay. Again, so my prediction for this fight is, again, movement, a lot of movement for Alexander Volkanovski. That's the only way he makes it to the 5th round, makes it out of this fight, is movement, leg kicks, calf kicks, keep them low. Don't give Makhachev the ability to grab those leg kicks. And don't telegraph him. You got to put stuff behind it. You got to keep him thinking. And you got to cut your angles. You can't get your back get put up against the cage, because even if Makhachev only just gets you down and you're able to get back up, that's going to give more confidence to Makhachev to be able to, okay, I'm just going to go through what Volkanovski is going to offer. I'm going to get him down, and he can only keep up with that for so long. Makhachev's going to think. Good thing for Volkanovski is Volkanovski has obviously good cardio. He is going up. He's going to be the smaller guy. We know these things. But at some point, I think Islam Makhachev hurts Volkanovski somehow, whether it's against the cage, whether the pressure gets to him. I think he makes Volkanovski panic move, and when he does that, I think Islam Makhachev is going to take advantage, and I think he gets a submission win. I don't see this fight going 5 rounds. I'd like to see it go 5 rounds. I think it'd be really fun. I'd like to see what Volkanovski's game plan is. It has to be Volkanovski use a lot of movements, either be all the way in or all the way out. You can't be either or. And calf kicks is probably another big weapon they're going to try to use. there's not really much more you could do because of the fact that Makhachev is good going backwards, and he's obviously good when he's dictating the action. But either way, I have Islam Makhachev winning this fight. Again, I think Islam's just going to be bigger. He's just going to be too strong. And at some point in a 5-round fight, Islam Makhachev is going to get him where he wants him, and he's going to be able to finish Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think he finishes him with punches. I think he submits Alexander Volkanovski. Let me know down below if you guys agree. If you disagree, again, of course, let me know. As always, guys, you know what it is. Peace.